So we can add assets to Unity in a number of ways. One of the main ways is we directly import them, which is what we're going to be doing with our Maya files in a later video. But a lot of things can actually be created within Unity. So over here in the hierarchy, I have what's in my scene right now. So my scene is called sample scene, and a scene is like a level, basically. But we have the camera, and we have our directional light, and that's it. That's what Unity gives us to start with. There's actually a little create button right here that if I click, there's tons of different options for things that are built into Unity that I can create. For instance, under 3D object, I can create a cube. And suddenly, it will put a cube into my scene. I can see the cube over here in the hierarchy. I can move it around. My commands in Maya work just like they do in Unity. So Q is selection, W, E for rotate, R for scale. So I can play with these objects and move them around. I can also modify them over here in the inspector window. There's other primitives within this 3D object, such as quad, which is essentially going to be like a plane. There's lights that we can put in here. For instance, I could drop a spotlight, move that around. It might be kind of hard to see in this environment, but there it is on the side of my cube. So take some time to go through here and just see what some of these different things are. A lot of them aren't going to work for you right out of the box, but it's interesting to always, just kind of check out what's in here before we get too deep into the program. You can always select things in the hierarchy and just hit delete to delete them, or I can right click and press delete. And if I want to turn something on and off, I can also check and uncheck it over here in the inspector. There's plenty of other assets that we can create up in the Assets menu, and then under the Create menu, there's loads of things in here, a little bit more than in this Create in the hierarchy. These will typically create down here in the Assets folder. So for instance, if I create a new C# script, it's actually going to make a C# file down here in my Assets folder. This file truly exists on my computer. If I go to Finder and visit my desktop and go to my project folder, in my Assets folder, I now have that .cs C# script that I've created in here. So the Assets menu can also create things in your project, and I just want you to be aware of that for now. Something else that you might use quite a bit is creating empties, which empties are basically game objects that exist as almost like organizational tools. So let's create an empty, and it's just going to call it game object. And it does have a position and a place in our world, but really this is almost like a folder in Photoshop. It's used for organization primarily. So for instance, let's drag, I'm going to create some cubes real quick. And if I drag my cube and drop it into my game object, it's now nested that cube within the game object. It's created like a little folder. Just like my scene, I can twirl up and down. I can twirl this game object up and down. So I can move the game object, rotate it, do things like that. I can also grab the cube directly, move it around. Its position is relative to the game object's position, so as it moves around, the game object's going to behave a little bit differently. I can add other things to the game object, like the spotlight and the quad. And once these things are in my game object, if I have my game object selected, I can move them all as one unit. So play around with game objects, working with different primitives and objects in our scene, and seeing how things parent and nest to each other.